were at the border when Title 42 expired on the heels of the House passing that GOP border security bill, which would complete the border wall, keep remaining Mexico in place, and increase security along the southern border. This is never going to see the light of day in the Senate, is it?
You know, and unfortunately not. And what your listeners need to understand is that Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer want this problem. They want thousands of people crossing the border every day to come into your communities and vote for Democrats in the future. You know, if I could just paint the picture for you, this is my 4th trip there. It gets worse every time. This week, or last week, 10,000 people crossing the border every day, illegally being apprehended, but another 3,000 gotaways. In those gotaways, that's where your criminals are, your terrorists, the drug trafficking as well. It is completely out of control, a humanitarian crisis.
Quickly, President Biden struggling over there right now, day one of the G7 summit in Japan. We've got all this stuff going on here at home. Could he have done some of this over the phone or by Zoom? Should he be there right now in Japan?
Well, that's a great question. We need to balance our national security issues with our economic issues, and we're just seeing this is how Joe Biden fails. If he's not in his basement running his campaign, he fails when it really takes true leadership, and that's what we're seeing right now. That Joe Biden is a vacuum of leadership. This could have been solved months ago, but instead he waits till another crisis is present.
Yeah, and I get that with everything going on globally right now. This is obviously a very important G7, but just with everything happening here at home, people are questioning whether or not this was the right move. I want to play you a soundbite. This is Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries and what he had to say about the debt ceiling fight moving forward. Let's listen.
You've got Republicans in the House of Representatives who have made the determination that we are going to jam our extreme right-wing ideology down the throats of the American people using the threat of default in order to get our way.
All right. Senator, to you first. You're on the Budget Committee, then we'll widen this out. Your reaction to those comments?
Well, I'd love to say minority leader Hakeem Jeffries. He's the minority leader. Look,
right.
He has no power right now. This needs to be a deal between Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, and Joe Biden. Look, all we're asking is not to give Joe Biden another credit card until he brings some fiscal responsibility. And we can do both. And by the way, the ball is in their side of the court. It's now ready for them to ping it back. If we default on our debt, Joe Biden owns this.
Krisha, your thoughts?
I would say we are in a good place right now. Kevin McCarthy has done his job. I want to give him a lot of credit but for him, I don't think this would ever have come about. And it's a good thing that Joe Biden might be at the G7 right now because we seem to be closer when it comes to the negotiations. I give him a lot of credit. It took Joe Biden 97 days or so to ultimately meet with the speaker. So it's clear that they were postponing this all along.
John, Politico on Monday reported that the White House says they're not going to negotiate over the debt ceiling. Politico this morning says we're closer than ever to a deal. What's changed in 5 days? Joe Biden's been gone for 3 of them.
Well, he went over to Japan to meet with the G7 leaders. But the thing is that this economic issue with regard to the debt ceiling is national security. Why? Because if we default, or the threat of default, or the perception thereof, actually creates a disturbance globally in the financial markets. And if we are no longer seen as the global leader in terms of the financial markets, then that'll actually create distrust, undermine our ability financially, economically, as well as national security. So the two are married and are inseparable.
Senator?
Exactly, they are inseparable. The number one threat to our national security is our $31 trillion national debt. Joe Biden spent $500 billion last year on an interest payment. $500 billion, he's going to spend $1 trillion this year. I'm not an economist,
right,
but I just don't see how we can run this business of the government if we're spending $1 trillion a year on interest. There'll be no money left for a strong military.
Okay, so let's land the plane. Any chance that we default on June the 1st?
I don't think we do. I think June 1st is an imaginary date to start with. We'll pay the debt that needs to be paid. Maybe we won't pay members at the White House. Maybe we won't pay senators.
Right.
But we're going to pay our debt.
And do you, just Kevin McCarthy's been Speaker of the House now, and I know you're in the upper chamber, but he's been Speaker for something like 125 days. Your assessment of how he's done, because he got off to a rocky start in early January, but by most accounts it seems like he's risen to the occasion.
A++. I think he has the toughest job in the world right now, trying to manage with such a thin majority. People have no idea how hard it is to keep both factions within the Republican Party together. Folks back home ask me, why don't you Republicans stick together? We're sticking together on this one. We're not going to blink. Joe Biden has to come to the table and give us both some type of work towards a balanced budget and take care of the national debt limit.
Just quickly on these hearings that we saw yesterday on Capitol Hill. Really, I mean, we haven't seen a hearing like that with the animosity that's just palpable between Democrats and Republicans in that chamber. It was something to witness. I can't imagine what it would have been like to be in the room. But the Durham report drops on Monday. What's your reaction to what's going on in Washington and where we are?
We got them on the run.
Yeah.
We got them on the run. We're over the target. Look, the truth eventually comes out. People understand that there was corruption at the very highest levels between the FBI, the DOJ, and the White House was involved from day one as well. A doctor once told me, if you lose your reputation, you never get it back. The FBI's lost their reputation. We had the Democrats on the run. Let's finish the job.
All right, we'll leave it there. Hope everybody has a great weekend. John Burnett, Chris Scialenzo, Senator, thanks so much for being with us this morning. We'll keep a close eye on what happens over the next 13 days in Washington when it comes to the debt ceiling. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.